Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for seek power always, that power within you to do that bigger work in the world. I am so thrilled to introduce to you my special guest today, Shirley Yang, who is the founder and CEO of Muses, an entrepreneurs and creative network that has created over 100,000 gigs for members in 121 countries. She is a startup mentor and advisor for women tech founders, Techstars, and 1871, a premier startup hub for entrepreneurs in Chicago. Shirley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane. I just love the spa life, the concept of it, how you manifested it. I've been a fan.
Oh, thank you so much. And, you are such an example of living that. And one of the things when we had connected, I love just your grace and your impact in the world and what you're up to. And part of the conversations that we have here in Spa Life is around consciously creating your life and really being clear about what that is. And I know for you, setting a social boundaries is really important. And I know for some people that may be kind of an interesting kind of a dynamic because you are so socially out in the world as an influencer. How is it that you put yourself out there, but you also have those boundaries?
I think, this came from experience and just a process in the past couple of years because of what I do, brand building online, as well as helping influencers and entrepreneurs build online presence. A lot of times it's a lot of networking. It's a lot of talking to people online and offline. It's really, it takes a lot of your energy away, right? And, I loved it. I soaked in it for several years, and I just let my extrovert, get all of that. And then I realized, okay, so how much of it really translates to direct purpose, right? From a business perspective, career perspective, personal perspective. And then we have to learn to segment that. And so I started looking at myself and what I do, my actions, and see how much value is that to me, to people I care about, and to what I'm trying to accomplish. And then that's when I started thinking, okay, there needs to be some boundaries, not just socially, but just anything that I do, right? Some people say, okay, well, you need to be more selective, say no more actually is enabling the yes to push that forward even more. And so I started practicing that. And I realized that setting social boundaries, understanding my priorities actually gave me back the power, right, to decide what is more important in my own life and what I really want to accomplish.
Right. That is so important because, there is that FOMO, right? That fear of missing out where there's so many different options. But I think it's so important to be clear, on your no as well as your yes. And, you've mentioned to me about that you had to learn this the hard way about knowing when to stop. What were some things that came up for you that made you make this shift?
Sure. So I think it's, so moving to Chicago, balancing startup life, and at the same time, building an online presence. I would go to a lot of events in the city, in also New York, and other cities in the US. Just because I felt like, okay, there are conferences that I should be at, maybe we get invited to speak and I realized that, okay, what's the ROI on that, right? If we've already practiced, if we've already done something, are we seeing the direct impact, right? And I felt like it was more time and commitment on my part than necessarily seeing the direct impact of what I'm looking for. Then I can realize, okay, next time maybe I can, omit that and then look for other avenues that have direct impact on what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I really embrace that so much, because as we've been looking here in our family at 2020, we've really been looking at what can we take off of the calendar, what is not necessary to move forward, our mission and our purpose, but yet also have deep connection and really be able to impact people the way that we want to do that. So I think it's important for all of our listeners here to really look at, as we're coming into this, fourth quarter, to see and start noticing what is serving us and what's not, and where we want to go from there. Now, for those who may not know, you are newly pregnant, and how is that, beautiful news and changes that will be coming for you in 2020, how will that shift how you are spending your time, and how will it impact your work?
Right. So if one thing I learned in life, Diane, is what I think will happen is a lot of times not what really happens. I think I can manage everything and everything will be status quo, knowing that, there's going to be a big shift in life. Right. And so first of all, we're super excited, and thank you so much for your kind message. This is our first child. It's a girl. So I'm very, very happy, and we're just planning everything. We're planning to get a lot of help, and, thankful to have the resources around us so that I'm not alone, right? Welcoming the newborn at the same time running the business. I mean, I think, again, it's priorities, right? So I think every stage in life we have to look at what are the most important things. If you spread your love too thin, it's just not going to happen. So for me, we're continuing to grow the business, grow Muses. I think, previously I was really emphasizing on building my brand on Instagram, particularly in the lifestyle, fashion, blogger groups. But I think that's definitely shifted to more entrepreneurship and startup and creative sort of female business owners as my tribe, if you will. So shifting to that, looking at people who can support me and I can give support in those tribes, and less of the previous fashion bloggers type groups, if you will. And at the same time, enjoying time building our new family. I think that's something, I don't know what it's going to be like, but I just hear so many wonderful things about that. So I'm looking forward to being that mom entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that. I love you're giving yourself some space around that. So as the mother of two grown daughters, and actually my youngest grandson is 10 months. And so he comes over because my daughter works for our company. And so we get to see him on a regular basis. And one of the things I can share with you is, take the time to enjoy these different moments, because especially in the beginning, they change so much, and there's so many things to just celebrate and to be part of, and you can't get those things back. Right. And so putting other aspects on hold at different times may be the best thing for you, but to feel in, and, no one can say what is going to be your journey. And so really just feeling into like, hey, I need to have a work day because I can't watch Sesame Street one more time, or, or I just want to be with my baby. So it's just such a great thing to have all these choices that we have now as parents and as entrepreneurs, and how those things blend.
Absolutely. And I just feel so fortunate now that, being an entrepreneur, we can be flexible with our freedom and our time, right? I think that's the reason why we chose this route, is for that freedom, to have that flexibility and decide that, there are more important things in life than just work, and how am I going to prioritize that? It's my choice, right? And I think that's something that I'm so happy more and more people are embracing.
Absolutely. One of the things I love sharing with my clients about, really look at what you get to do versus what you have to do, right? Because you want to look forward to your days, and you really want to craft them in the way that actually works for you. And I know one of the things that you've also shared with me about when you're making impact in life, to dissect what it is that you're afraid of. Can you expand a little bit about that, what that looks like? Because I know as entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of our listeners, there's a lot of fears, and there's a lot of up and downs in entrepreneurship. And so how are you utilizing that to dissect those fears?
Sure. I think from my standpoint, yes, fear is always there, but my fear translates into anxiety. And it's like, okay, when it's time to go to bed, I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now, and then my anxiety starts her one-woman show, right? She starts talking to herself and thinking about everything that I haven't done yet, everything I need to do tomorrow, and then I play out all the different scenarios that could happen, right? And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs and type A personalities experience the same thing. And that comes from fear, right? That's the root of it. You know, what if this, what if that? And it's just trying to be that perfectionist. And so, you know, this is something that we have to practice, you know, how to manage our anxiety, how to manage our thoughts and our feelings. And we have to practice it. It's just like a muscle that we exercise. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I, you know, don't do this at night, but do this during the day. I would think about, okay, if I'm facing something right now, maybe it's a project, maybe it's a proposal, maybe it's a huge milestone that I don't know whether or not I can carry our company through. I'll just think about, what are the possible outcomes? What's the worst thing that can happen? And that's the scariest part, right? The worst thing that can happen, a lot of times people will determine that as a failure, right? But what does that actually mean? Does that mean you're out on the street? Does that mean all of your family will leave you? Like no, oftentimes it's not, right? A lot of times it's hurting your ego. A lot of times that means starting over, or it means spending more money, you know, and resources on fixing the thing or creating a new solution. And I think at the end of the day, the important thing here is there is a way to either save it, salvage it, or make it happen. Not necessarily the way that you originally intended it to be so smoothly, but nothing in life goes as planned, right? And so, you know, I love the app Headspace, not sponsored, but I use Headspace for meditation. And the other day there was a push notification, and it said something like anxiety or frustration. The only root of it is because you want something happen that is not the actual outcome. So you want something different to happen. And that stems from within ourselves. It doesn't come from other people manifesting or planting the seed. It's our own mind, right? If something happens that's not what we intended it to happen, that's where stress and anxiety comes from. But for us, we can change that perspective and say, okay, this is reality. How do I deal with it? And, you know, how can we do it better next time? So, I mean, it's definitely easier said than done, but it's something that, you know, I try to practice more and more, so that, you know, I've noticed a change in myself where I'm more calm in situations where I don't know what's going to happen, or maybe there is fear there, but at least I'm not freaking out and, you know, staying up all night. At least I know, okay, you know, I've been through this road before. You know, it's not something that, you know, I can't overcome. So I think it's a lot of self-talk that we have to practice.
Right. I completely agree. I mean, one of the favorite quotes that I love is that, you know, your mind can be a bad neighborhood. Don't go in there alone.
That's funny.
Yeah. You know, because the things that come up in our head, sometimes it's even helpful to like almost consider it like your mind as being like a separate entity to yourself, where you're like, isn't that interesting? You're trying to help me feel safe, or you're trying to give me this, but then stand in your power and stand in that place where it's like, okay, I got this. That is kind of a ridiculous. I love how you go down to all the possibilities that there are, because when you actually voice those possibilities, then you can kind of go like, okay, it's probably not going to be that bad, but if I've put myself and I've thought through it, then you've already kind of, you know, just let go of some of the power of where that fear and anxiety can come in and how it can support you. And so I love just any of these tools. In fact, for any of our listeners here, I'd love for you guys to put in the comments, what are some of the tools that you do to release some of your anxiety that helps you stand in your power? Like, what does that actually look like? And I think it's important to have, I use the Calm app where I do a meditation before bed. In fact, for our listeners, I just found a new kind of scientific quote around that is that if you listen to a meditation for just 12 minutes a day, it like increases your anti-aging properties by like 75%.
Well, that sounds great.
Right? So who doesn't want that? So you're like reducing your anxiety and it's helping you look more beautiful at the same time. So, you know, I love these 2-for-1 things that happen out there in the world. So it's just important for us to really look at, you know, how can we set up our day that we can win and really support us in that way. So with that, I'd love to ask you more about what does having power mean to you?
Sure. So I thought about this. This is actually a question I had for you, but I thought, okay, I'm going to think about it. I want to hear your answer. Okay. It changes in different stages of life for me, right? I think when I was younger, it was probably more the traditional definition. If you look on Merriam-Webster, right? Being able to make things, different outcomes happen your way. Right. Now in the stage right now, I think power for me is knowing thyself, like know thyself, right? And understanding what you need to do in order to make yourself comfortable in all situations. And I think it's a self-learning process for me. The more decisions that I make that are suitable to my personality and how I am as a person, I think I'm happier, I'm more at peace. And being able to do that and being able to manifest that through experience and through communication, through body language, whatever it is, through hard work, makes me feel powerful because I am where I need to be.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, and I'm happy to, you know, thanks for asking around that, because I do have a lot of people who just the word power alone can actually be confronting for people, because
Sure.
a lot of times they think of power as a misuse of power, and they are maybe not comfortable in it. And so one of the things I love about your definition around it is it all has to do with you taking personal responsibility of your own power, that you're not relying on other people to either elevate you to a power or to give you that, you know, kind of crown you with that power, if you will. It's like we self-determine these things, and that's so important as an entrepreneur, as, you know, a parent, as a friend, you know, as being in relationships, that we aren't looking for power outside of ourselves. And that's why, you know, when one of the things I had looked at with Spa Life about seek power always, I'm looking at that power within you, that it's generating within you, that power doesn't happen outside of you, that you actually are your own power.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. And there's so much energy around that. And I feel like that's how we support, you know, each other, of really recognizing that power within each other. And it gets built by experience and experiences in life, and, you know, really looking at, you know, where's our resilience, and where have we overcome things, and how many times have we know this as entrepreneurs where we fall, but we want to, you know, fail forward and get back up, and really just support each other, that's all part of the process. You know, we have in one of our kind of mastermind groups with Platinum, actually with eWomen, one of my friends in there, Tony Caruso, just finished doing an event where she's an event planner, and she showed a meme picture where there was a little girl holding on to a carousel, and she was like leaning off of it, and it was rolling around, where she was just like exhausted. And it was so cute because it's like she put it all out there. And there can be exhausting times, but when you survive that, it builds your power, it builds your resilience, it builds who you are. And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect all the time or everything is going right. It's actually when those things go wrong and you look at all those possibilities that you mentioned, that you can actually then make better choices that allows you to be like, you know what, I got this. Right? And you can just get that power within you to really support you in that. And I know that there's different times where we feel disempowered versus feeling empowered. And I know that you had a recent incident that felt disempowering and that you had to move through. In fact, we kind of moved some of our dates to get together because of that thing that happened. So I'm going to share a little bit about that, because I think it's important for our listeners to hear when things kind of take us out of the game, or we have to shift, or we have to look at things differently, and how we move through them.
Absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm pregnant right now. I'm in my second trimester. About a month ago, I broke my ankle. And so, I've never broken a bone before, and it's a true fracture. It's not a sprain. It was spin class, and the bone broke. And the first feeling that I experienced was anger, because my first trimester was already difficult. I felt nauseous and all of the, everything you can think of. Finally moving into my second trimester, I'm feeling better, and bam, this happens, right? And what that means is 6 weeks with no walking, either crutches or knee rover, and I couldn't do crutches because I'm off balance and I can fall again as a pregnant person. So I was on one of those knee rovers, which is really awkward, and in a boot, one of those casts, and I just couldn't go anywhere. And I'm someone who's, meetings, I'm always out, I'm always doing events, and, we just talked about that. And now I can't go anywhere. Basically, I'm stuck at home. And I had to ask people, literally, what do I do at home? I had to crowdsource opinions. And people say, well, sign up for masterclass. Do you want to learn how to cook? Do you want to? Wow, And so, I was speaking with someone, they said, well, this is a test for you. When there's no one around you, when you're trapped at home with yourself, with yourself.
Interesting word choice.
Right. How do you live with yourself? Do you like yourself? Can you be happy with yourself? Do you have to be on social media? Can you read a book? Can you meditate? Can you have those dialogues with yourself that are necessary, internal dialogues? And so, it's just, you don't think about it until you have to go through it on your own for 6 weeks. And yes, granted, I went outside with a over here and there, but I can only go so far. I would go down the street, to CVS, run a few errands, and come home. It was very difficult to go to events and go networking and do everything that I needed to. Everything was done remotely through telephone or video conference. And I just had so much time to just internalize and think about, how do I move through this? And so, those different stages of grief, right? I'm exaggerating right now, but I definitely went through anger. I went through acceptance. And then finally, I'm at a point where, okay, I actually went through this. I'm a pregnant person who fractured her ankle and running a business at the same time. And it's really building internal, mental, physical, and spiritual resilience, finding where do I find that strength, and I was seeking that. And I think really it comes with that internal dialogue, understanding that I'm progressing, this is the journey, right? There's a setback, but if you think about it, it's really not that terrible. I still have my business. I still have my baby. I still have all the friends and family. If anything, they're so much more loving now, right? I'm just dealing with this, the struggle is just internal. So if I can accept all of that and move forward, this is temporary. I'm not permanently damaged in a sense. So I'm still very fortunate. And it's just, to me, it was in the beginning, it was a big setback just because I've never broken anything before. But having that experience, I think, wow, it just spoke about volumes, and I learned so much about myself. And, I will have to admit, I thought I would have managed it better. The first 2 weeks I was very upset. My poor husband, he was my punching bag, verbally speaking. But, I thought I would have managed it better. But through this, I learned about myself as well.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing, not only just that journey of that, but, just the insight about noticing for yourself where you felt like you didn't manage it well. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's so important to kind of be not as a self-critic, but just as an awareness around what things push our buttons, what things can, help us move through things. But do you see like how, and for our listeners as well, when you have things that kind of maybe knock you off course or, isn't what you expected, how are you looking at that? What's the dialogue that you're having? Like we're talking about this mental game that's happening in our head. Are we listening to that voice? Are we really able to kind of overcome some of those things? And then, building some tools about if something like that, God forbid, happens again, that you would be able to, really reach for those tools and be able to now look at them from a very different perspective. And there's such a shock value of when things are going along. And isn't it interesting about how we learn certain lessons when it's like, okay, we're just getting some momentum on something and something happens, right? And it's such an analogy to our business too. I mean, sometimes when we've got the peaks in our business is when somebody quits or a client goes away or certain things happen where it's like, okay, wow, I'm in this path and something happens and now we have to pivot and we have to make these adjustments and have these things happen. And I totally feel for you when it comes to physical pain and physical things that happen because we don't realize how many things are connected to that. When I was with the police department and I shattered my gun hand, I was right-handed and this was my gun hand. And I had a huge external fixator on my hand that I couldn't even use my hand. And I had to relearn everything with my left hand. It took 6 months to relearn how to use this hand. And it was such, not only a blow that I couldn't be doing my work and my daughters were young and all these things that were coming up, but I had to, look at how to brush my hair and how to get dressed. And even something as ridiculous as using toilet paper was like a thing, right?
Absolutely.
Because we get so used to how certain things are. And so when we look at these as opportunities to grow from and to be grateful of the things that we were taking for granted, it's such a huge awareness. So how will you look at things differently now that you've had this experience?
Well, I told my husband once the boot is off, which I'm still wearing, I'm going to wear high heels every day. I'm going to, joking aside, I'm just so thankful thinking of just, being healthy, being normal is a blessing, is a gift. We're given so much, every day, and we take it for granted. And I will tell you something heartwarming. So I did a photo shoot with a couple ladies here in Chicago for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we all lined up outside. We were all wearing pink. And I was wearing my boot. And I said, maybe I should step outside of the frame because I'm in my mind, I'm ruining the photo. Everyone's in their pretty dresses and they have their cute little shoes. And I'm wearing this ugly big boot, And they started yelling at me, Shirley, get in the photo. You're the epitome of a woman fighting right now, like fighting and surviving right now. You're pregnant and you have a broken foot. Get in the photo. And I thought, that's so heartwarming, just my perspective of myself is different from other people's too. So when you're going through something, I don't know if it's self-pity or self-talk, that I didn't do it correctly. It's my first time. But getting external feedback on looking at it from a different perspective, right? Instead of, the situation sucks right now. It's more like, hey, you're the epitome of a fighter, a warrior right now.
Yes.
Made me feel so empowered and said, take my photo. Right?
Yes. Oh, that is so good. Well, and that's why it's so important, the tribe that we have, people that we have around us, so that when we have those moments where we're not recognizing it in ourselves, that they lift you up and, show that these challenges you're going through, those are the things that make you a warrior and have you stand in your power. So good for them for getting you in there.
I know. I'm very thankful.
I'm thinking in maybe some of your downtime in the house, you maybe should bedazzle this boot.
Oh, right. That's so funny.
A little bling on there.
So of course I said, it's like a space gray color. And then I asked him, does this come in black? And then I immediately felt bad saying that. But yeah.
There might be an entrepreneurial opportunity for some people out there to jump into that.
Can you make prettier looking boots?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so funny. So speaking of pretty, one of the things that I love to ask my guests is that it's so important, the environments that we create. We talked about environments of our friends, but our physical space also reflect how we are being. And we feel differently in our bedroom versus our kitchen versus our office. So what is your favorite room in your home and why?
I like the breakfast room. So we have a remote team of about 7 people. I do work out of a co-working space here and there if I want to be surrounded with people. But my favorite corner in the room is the breakfast room. And how it's laid out is it reminds me of, we set it up like the Italian cafe, if you will. Like there's
I love it.
Window where you can see out. We're right on the water. In Chicago. So, and then there's a high table that's made of wood, and I get to just be in my corner. I can imagine wherever this is, right? And I think the sunshine just gives me energy. I feel like a plant. I need that sun and just absorb that good feeling, good light, and good energy, and just have my laptop here. And I think it's kind of my quiet corner, right? I think that there are spaces, in the afternoon, if let's say I'm still working from home, then I would move a couple hours. I need to change the scene. Maybe I move on to a chaise where my dog can sit next to me. So it's more calming. It's not so intense answering emails or strategizing. It's more just, R&R work, right? Yeah. So I think it's important to know what are some of your corners. Definitely don't work in bed. No matter what you do, don't bring your laptop to bed because that's when you disrupt your sleep.
Yes, I absolutely agree on that. And I love for, our listeners to start looking at what are you creating in your environments? Because each environment, it actually, whether it's conscious or not, it is affecting how you're doing, works, how you're connecting with other people and what those things look like. So we want to be conscious about the environments that we create and know what things inspire us, right? And be able to do the work that we are here to do. So I know that you have this massive network and you have this generous gift that you're offering for people who are looking to hire people. You want to tell a little bit about that?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Muses is all about connecting entrepreneurs, creative freelancers to hire and get hired for work. I think more and more of us are, like we said, looking for that flexibility. We want to work remotely. We want a flexible schedule. And so if you're looking to hire talent or if you're looking for opportunities, it's free for anyone to join. And you can post a gig to hire for free as well. Coming from Diane, coming from a Spotlight referral, if you just let me know, then we're happy to screen some candidates and make sure that we put your gig in front of our entire audience, either through newsletters or social media.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's so generous of you. And how's there people can keep in contact with you?
Sure. So the website is musesapp.com. On Instagram, at Shirley, just my first name, Shirley, got it early. Send me a message and we can connect there.
Awesome. Perfect. And so one kind of final question from me is around, you mentioned that when you first, you are an early adopter and influencer with Instagram, and your focus was mostly fashion, and now you're moving a little bit more into the entrepreneurial realm of that. Any suggestions for people that are changing their genre or their focus in that? Do you just do it? Is it something you ease into? What is it that you recommend around that?
So the most common question I get from people is, do I start a new account, right? Or do I have a personal account and then have a separate business account? My recommendation comes from just working with a lot of entrepreneurs and talents. No, you keep your same account. Your personal account should be your brand account. Just one account is enough for you.
Talk about boundaries.
Job. Yes. Because you are your brand. You can't, people want to know who is the CEO, who is the founder behind the brand. They want to know what you stand for and what's your messaging, because they can choose from so many different brands. Why you, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say just be authentic with who you are remember what you post is representative of your brand. I would say in terms of transition, the content, for me, I eased into it, but I was very transparent about it. Right. And I did fashion and lifestyle before is because that was just more endemic to my surroundings and the people that I knew. So I knew that was a faster growth track to cultivate initial audiences. And at the same time, a lot of fashion influencers and bloggers are entrepreneurs. Okay. So it made sense to make that transition to talk about entrepreneurship and showcase what I'm doing. And so I would say my content would be 60-40, 60%, 70% entrepreneurship, the things that I do about my business, 40 or 30% will still be just life, personal, and fashion.
Got it. Perfect. Well, I could be talking with you all day long, and there's so many wonderful things that you're up to, and I just want to thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. And is there any final thoughts that you have, either in life or business, that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I think that, I love what you're doing. I love your definition of power. I love how it aligned with seeking power from within. I think that these are dialogues that we should have with ourselves in different stages of life. It's not like a magic potion that we take and then you're set for the rest of your life. We got to check in with ourselves from time to time. And we're lucky to have people like you along the journey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, it's so important to create our communities here together, and that we support each other, and that we don't think of entrepreneurship as being alone. Sometimes, when we spend a lot of time alone, maybe working, doing our next thing, but it's important to reach out and create those communities. And it is one of the reasons why I've created this show, is so that people can have resources of, what do you do through those challenging times? How do you stand in your power, and what that looks like? And we will put all the links for people to stay connected with Shirley in the show notes. I'll also have a free gift for you as well about resetyourpowergift.com, about moves to be able to stand more in your power and to utilize those skills. And no matter what platform you're listening to this or watching this on, please put in the comments, like, what were some of your ahas? What are the things you're going to take away? Make sure that you tag both Shirley and I. Any questions that you may have, we're here to serve and to support you any way that we can. And want to connect with you and thank you for your most important resource that you have is your time. And we value it so much for you being here with us. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. See you.